Hello and welcome to CloudFolks HUB. My name is Bhavesh Adara. We understood completely that how we can create ECS cluster. And here I have my ECS cluster is ready. But now what is next? I have my ECS cluster ready, but how I can utilize this cluster? Definitely, you are going to host your one of the application over here in this particular ECS cluster. But how? I'm going to reveal this answer in this particular video. Let's start. First of all, if you have your ECS cluster ready and if you want to host your application, you have two options over here. First, we call it task and another one we call it service. First of all, we are going to understand what is task and then we will also discuss about service. Here I have this mind map. Let's understand ECS task properly. Here I am going to start with what is a task. When you want to run your application in ECS, you run it as a task. So you have to set up task first and you are running application inside the task. Just like in EC2, you create instance to run your app. Let's say that if I have one small application and if I want to run this particular application inside EC2, the steps are I'm going to create EC2 instance. I will choose operating system. Then I'm going to set up web server. Let's say that if I'm using Linux, I'm going to set up web server. Then I'm going to copy my source code and then I'm going to use my application. Same way here, we have to set up task. In ECS, you run a task to start your app. Now, here I have key points related to the task. Think of task as a container in action. What is ECS? ECS is a container orchestration service. So here, when we are going to talk about task, it is kind of container in action. It runs your actual application based on the container image you define. How to define? That I will explain you. You can start it manually and stop it when done. ECS will not restart it automatically if it is stopped. Now, when we are going to talk about task, it is kind of temporary provisioning, right? Here, I am going to explain you this using this particular example. Let's say that I have example 1. Imagine you are building new web application and you want to test it quickly. No need for high availability. You just want to run it, check the output and stop it after testing. So if you want to run your application temporary, you don't want high availability or load balancing or anything. In this case, you can create task. So in this case, you can create tasks to test your app temporary. Same way, here I have another example. You have one time job like generating report or resizing image. It runs once and doesn't need to stay live. Again, the task is perfect for use. You know, if you don't want to go for the production, you don't want high availability or you don't want auto scaling, in this case, you can create task. Now, you may have another question as well, but if I want high availability, I want to load balance the traffic among multiple containers. In this case, we can use services. Don't worry about this. We will talk about services in upcoming video. Right now, just concentrate on task, right? Now, I gave you brief introduction about task, but you know, most of the people, specifically who is actually having knowledge of Docker, always having one confusion in their mind. You know, they have question like, okay, if I have Docker container, I can run application inside the Docker container. So why in ECS they are not calling it container? Why they are actually calling it task, right? I'm going to solve this confusion right now. Let me start with introduction. See, in Docker we run application directly as container using simple command. A Docker container is like single running app. In ECS we don't run container directly. We run a task, which is more advanced and cloud ready concepts. See, if you have container having some limitation, right? if we are going to talk about task having some advantages specifically required for the cloud. If you look at over here, the task is a complete unit. It can include one or more containers. Container is a single unit. Task may have multiple containers. You can attach role with the task, IAM role, which is most important. Why? I will tell you about it. You can also secure your task using security group. And the biggest advantage of task, you can attach ENI. ENI means Elastic Network Interface directly to the task, which is not possible to attach with the container. Now, I want you to understand this concept properly. That's why I'm going to provide you one real world example. Here, the goal is you have one application. Now, this application is very simple, contact us form, right? Now, it has two containers, front-end containers and back-end container. Front-end container display the website contact form. Let's say that if you are going to open any website, they have contact us form. So front-end will provide these details. Collect the user input like name, email and messages. Backend container, it is MySQL database container, store all the submitted contact from the data in the database, maybe used later in the CRM or marketing, right? Now, if you have this application having two container, and if you are just going to use Docker, and if you are going to set up these containers, you have to set up multiple. And here is like a limitations if we are going to use containers only, right? So let's talk about each of them step by step. You have to start each container manually. Means you have to create two containers. If you want to use your application, you are going to start all these containers step by step. You must create custom Docker network so these two containers can communicate with each other, because at the end front end is going to store the data into the database. So you have to set up networking manually. You can't attach IAM role. Why? Because in Docker we don't have this facility. IAM role is actually facility of AWS. Now you may have one question over here that okay, why should I attach IAM role with my container? Let's say that you have this contact form. And now in this particular contact form, you are actually asking for name, address, and also you are asking for the customer profile, which is a PDF file. Now, whenever the customer is going to upload this PDF file, you want to store this file into the S3. Now here, in this case, your container must have permission to store the data into the S3. Now you can do this very easily by attaching IAM role, but attaching IAM role with the container is not possible at all when you have a pure Docker environment. Now in this case, you have to attach role with the Docker host, right? You cannot attach role directly with the container. You are attaching role with the Docker host. Here we have Fargate facility. So we need to attach role with the specific application or task, which is possible because we don't have container here, we have task, right? Then you can't attach security group to control the access. You can't assign subnet or VPC IP address directly to the Docker container. You have to manage restart, health check and log manually. And no way to assign fixed public IP or elastic IP. Now, in the case of Docker, we can't set up all these things like assigning role or attaching security group or setting up VPC IP address for the container. We are doing all this for the Docker host itself. But with the task, we have all this facility. Okay. So let's say that instead of using Docker host, if we are going to set up this particular application as a ECS task, what will happen?
Sorry to interrupt you. I know you guys are enjoying our video a lot because our final ultimate goal is Solution Architect Certification exam. To reach the destination, we required full videos. Path number 1, our 6-in-1 program. Our 6-in-1 program include all prerequisite skills which is needed as a cloud engineer. It include 24/7 support, lifetime update, section-wise practice test, full course practice test with tips and tricks by Bhavesh Atara, how to do exam preparation course, weekly lifetime live session with Bhavesh Atara, and 6 AWS project with documents. Path number 2, you can enroll by paying 499 and get Hindi and English, both the languages, videos of AWS. The choice is yours how to create your success story by choosing best one. Best of luck. Thank you.